Hey guys, it's Jay, and it is time for another VR game review, and today we're going to be taking a look at Loading Human, and as always, keep an eye out on the lower right-hand side of the screen for any spoiler alerts, along with the time that you need to skip to get past the spoiler. And if anybody watched my top 5 most anticipated PSVR games, this was number 5 on the list. I was very excited about this game. I was really looking forward to this game, and I really wanted to give it a high score because this is a very ambitious game, and they did things in this game that other VR titles aren't doing. For just a quick example, they give you arms. You know, every game that I can think of right now, especially on PSVR, is just floating hands. And I understand why they're doing the floating hands, but this one wanted to take it to the next level and give you actual arms and just different things like that. They do full locomotion in first-person view, which is something that a lot of developers are afraid to do. And they did locomotion with the Move controllers, which is a huge challenge because the Move controllers don't have an analog stick or touchpad on them to do it. So I really wanted this game to succeed, I really wanted it to be really good, and I really wanted to give it a high score. But I have to be honest with my reviews. I don't want to tell you something is better than it really was and then have you come back and be like, I don't care about your reviews, you told me this was good. So, unfortunately, the game, with all of its innovations, with all of its ambitions, ended up falling short in some very key areas. So let's get to it. So we're going to start where we always do, and that is with gameplay, because as I always say, gameplay is the most important aspect of any game. If you don't enjoy playing it, you're not going to care about the story, you're not going to care about the characters or anything else. And this is an interesting one because I really wanted to give the gameplay an 8 or 9 out of 10. There are some things about it that are really good, but I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. And the reason I love the gameplay so much, there's a couple of reasons. Number one is it doesn't hold your hand at all. There's no white arrow, above the next item that you need to find. There's no quest log reminding you what you were supposed to be doing. There's no mini-map with a drawn line showing you the path to your next area. The thing about this is you actually have to pay attention. I would suggest playing this game by yourself if you're going to play it, because I started out playing this game with friends nearby, and I was talking to them, and I wasn't listening to what the game was telling me, and then after the guy was done talking in the game, I realized that I really needed to hear what he said to know what to do, and that was a huge benefit to the game. I really enjoyed that. At its core, it's a puzzle game. There's no action. There's one mini game where you actually fire guns, but there's no real action in the game at all, and it's all about solving puzzles and putting events in order and things like that, and it works really well. And the thing I love the most about it is everything's so logical. So here's an example of what you might find in the game. This isn't actually in the game, it's just an example. Let's say there's a part where you need to change the batteries in a flashlight. So it's not going to, as I said earlier, it's not going to show you where the batteries are. You have to actually think, where would batteries be? So your first thought is, well, the supply room. That's probably a good place to find batteries. So you go to the supply room and there's no batteries there. So then you have to start thinking outside the box. What in this facility would have batteries in it? So you think, okay, the TV remote. You go check the TV remote, and they're the wrong size batteries. So then you're like, well, there's an electric shaver, maybe that has batteries in it. And then you go to the bathroom, sure enough, electric shaver has batteries, now you have batteries in the flashlight. That is an example of the type of puzzle that you're going to find in this game. And I really loved it because it challenges your critical thinking prowess. It actually makes you contemplate and to try to figure out what's going to happen. And when I finally got done with it, I actually felt like I accomplished something. And none of the puzzles are really that difficult to figure out, but they're all rewarding when you're done. And to be honest, it's been a while since I actually felt rewarded when playing a single player game. That's why I've been so big on games like Call of Duty, where if you do well, it's actually impressive because you did it against other human beings. So I really loved that aspect of the game. The game is not afraid to let you fail. The game is not going to give you any hints or clues or help you along the way. All it's done is created this world that you need to figure out how to live in. So again, I wanted to give this an 8 or 9 out of 10 for the gameplay. The problem, though, is that the movement is horrible. And I don't mean horrible in terms of making you sick. I mean horrible in terms of the controls are as ridiculously complicated as I've ever seen in a game. And I would walk you through how the controls work, but I don't want to add 10 more minutes to the video. Just suffice to say that by the end of the game, after I had already played it for probably 4 hours, I was still thinking to myself, how do I walk? Like, I'm where I'm at. I want to be over there. I have to actually concentrate on getting from where I am to where I want to be. And that is a huge problem. You see, walking in a video game or movement in a video game is kind of like officiating at a sporting event. If it's good, you don't notice it. But if it's bad, it completely kills the experience. So I have to give, between terrible movement and the really good gameplay, I'm just going to average out and give it a 5 out of 10. But as important as gameplay is, that was not the focus of Loading Human. I actually listened or watched a lot of interviews with the developers of Loading Human before PSVR came out, back when I was still looking for games to look forward to. And they made it a point in every single interview I watched to let everyone know that this was not about gameplay. This game is about story and character development. And it is because of that that I'm going to be extra hard on it when it comes to story and character development. So first we're going to talk about story. The story, I'm giving a 4 out of 10. And the problem with the story, that there's two different aspects to a story. There's the main overall big time story, and then there's the smaller stories that lead you through the main story. So I don't want to spoil anything, but the main story is really boring. There's nothing really intriguing going on, and the biggest problem I can give it is this is chapter 1. This is Loading Human chapter 1, and at the end of the game, there's supposedly this big cliffhanger, and it's supposed to make you all excited about chapter 2, and I honestly don't care about chapter 2 at all. I probably won't get it unless I just decide I really want to do another review. So that's the big problem with the main overall story, is it's not intriguing enough to keep me excited about the game. But it's still not as bad as the minor stories that get you through it. There were multiple times while I was playing this game that I was thinking to myself, the players will be riveted during the epic making of tea puzzle. No one will be able to pull their eyes away during the awe-inspiring changing of a light bulb scene. And who could possibly turn this off and go to bed in the middle of the intriguing making of dinner? And that is not an exaggeration. Those are 3 things you actually do in the game. And I'm not talking about how, like, most games will give you a tutorial and then they'll start you off with something easy and then ease you into more intense situations. The changing of a light bulb and making of dinner actually happened near the end of the game. We're well past halfway through the game, and that is the level of story that we've got. I mean, honestly, this game is basically Household Chores Simulator, except it's not as funny as Job Simulator. So there was the biggest problem I had with the game was that I never turned it off because I had to. I always turned it off because I wanted to. It was never, oh, it's time for dinner. Oh, it's time for bed. Oh, it's I have to be somewhere. I better turn this off. It was always, I just don't feel like playing anymore. And so that is really, really bad for a game that was supposed to pride itself in how intriguing and in-depth and fantastic the story was. And that's going to bring me to character development, and this one was really disappointing to me. I was really looking forward to seeing what they did with the characters and how well it worked in VR, and if they could actually get me to care about a AI character. but they fell so short in so many areas. Like, basically, the characters will not interact with you at all unless it is like scripted part of the story. The only thing any of them ever says is telling you to do something. And so like even think back to like PlayStation 1, Metal Gear Solid. If you sat and stared at Meryl for too long, she would do something. She would be like, "Oh, Snake, you're making me blush." Like, games for so long have had little like scripted interactions with the characters, like, you know, what are you looking at? Or you're making me blush, or you know, whatever the case may be, whatever kind of like personality you want to give the character. But personality was non-existent in this game. Honestly, the only time I actually cracked a smile at anything that the AI characters did was at something that Lucy, the artificial intelligence that runs the station, did.
Please look into the retina reader.
What do you mean by invasive procedure?
I will drill a small hole in your eye to analyze your optic nerve.
Are you joking?
Yes, haha.
Like, it's pretty bad when the least robotic character in the entire game is actually a robot. And the characters that you're really supposed to care about and you're really supposed to want to help are just mindless drones with pre-scripted interactions. And even then, it's as though the person writing the script doesn't speak English as a first language, and that's fine. You know, I know it's a foreign-made game, so that doesn't surprise me a whole lot. But at least like throw in some slang or some sarcastic jokes or something. Like, give them even the slightest bit of character.
First an AI with a sense of humor, now a woman with none.
And I don't want to pick on the voice actors too much because it's a low-budget game. They're not going to go out and get Kevin Spacey or something like that, like Activision can do. But you know, the voice acting was also very wooden and dry. It wasn't Resident Evil bad, but it was pretty close. And at the end, I just didn't care at all about the characters. Like I said, my favorite character in the whole game is a robot. And that's really bad when that was one of the main focuses of your game. As for VR sickness, I'm probably not the best person to judge that because I don't actually get VR sick. I had a couple of dizzy, woozy moments when I first started playing, and after about a day I had my VR legs, and I really just don't have that issue. But, and also I haven't heard of anybody else getting sick in it. However, it does have all of the common culprits for VR sickness, first-person movement, things like that. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 because I have not experienced it. I don't know of anybody who's experienced it, but it is possible that it's there and it just hasn't been reported. So overall, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, and I should probably get it a lower score than that, but to be honest, I did actually enjoy the puzzles, and I really appreciate them even trying to do half of the things that they did in this game. I hope that developers in the future won't look at this and say, well, see, that's why you can't have arms in games, or see, that's why locomotion doesn't work, or something like that. I hope that this is a step forward in VR and not a step forward to take 2 steps back kind of situation. As far as is it worth $40? The answer is no. The way I look at the value of Loading Human, I would say for $20, it's worth it to anybody. For $30, it's worth it for anybody who is previously excited about the game. But to be honest, I cannot justifiably suggest that you pay $40 for it, and I probably won't be buying Chapter 2 for $40. The one thing I do want to say is if you already have it, make sure you play it to the end. It is actually worth playing, and the coolest part of the whole thing is at the end of the game. The end credits sequence is actually really cool, and I'm not saying that sarcastically, like the coolest part of the game is the credits. I'm saying that because it's true. Like, they do this really cool cinematic with the end credits, and it's got a cool song behind it and everything. To be honest, if they had had that part at the beginning of the game, it probably would have made the entire thing feel a lot better because it would have got me pumped up to begin with. But anyway, yeah, make sure you play it to the end if you already have it. So thanks for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content, and leave me a comment letting me know what you'd like to see me review next. Goodbye.